My son-in-law used the emergency credit card I gave my daughter to buy a brand new convertible, smirking that it was a style emergency. He saw me as a walking ATM, a relic of a bygone era. So I made one phone call and let the police explain financial literacy to him at his office. Before we dive into this intense story, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens next. We'd also love to know where you're all tuning in from. Let us know in the comments. The text message arrived with the electronic chirp of a bird, a sound I usually associated with mundane reminders or pleasantries from friends. It was 3:14 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was in my study, reviewing the quarterly performance of a retirement fund I still managed for a few long-time clients, a task I found more soothing than tedious. The sunlight streamed through the large window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, tiny, silent witnesses to the quiet life I had built. I glanced at my phone, expecting a photo of my grandson, Noah, or a quick "love you" from my daughter, Clara. Instead, I saw the sterile, impersonal text from my credit card company. Fraud alert. Did you just authorize a charge of $72,451.88 at Prestige Motors? My blood ran cold. $72,000. The number was so absurd, so gargantuan, that for a moment I was certain it was a phishing scam. I had spent 40 years as a financial advisor, counseling thousands of people on the virtues of prudence and caution. I could spot a scam from a mile away. But this text was from the official number, the same one that sent me monthly payment reminders. I put my reading glasses on and stared at the screen, my heart beginning a low, heavy thrum against my ribs. Prestige Motors. I knew the name. It was one of those high-end dealerships on the other side of town, the kind with floor-to-ceiling glass windows showcasing cars that cost more than some people's homes. I hadn't been near a place like that in decades. My first thought, a bolt of pure terror, was for Clara and Noah. The card was for them. It sat in a sealed envelope in their home safe, a silent guardian I had put in place for a true crisis. A sudden medical emergency, a burst pipe that flooded the house, a catastrophic event that required immediate funds they might not have. Had something terrible happened? Was Clara in a hospital? Was Noah hurt? My mind, usually so orderly, became a maelstrom of horrific possibilities. My hand trembled as I fumbled to unlock my phone. I didn't respond to the text. I called Clara directly. My finger hovered over her name, my breath caught in my throat. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. On the fourth ring, her voicemail picked up. "Hi, you've reached Clara. I can't get to the phone right now." Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through my carefully constructed composure. Why wasn't she answering? The emergency card had been used and my daughter was unreachable. I was about to dial 911 when another call came through. It was Leo, my son-in-law. Relief washed over me, so potent it left me weak. If he was calling, they must be okay. Perhaps it was a mistake, a clerical error at the dealership. "Leo," I answered, my voice tighter than I intended. "Is everything all right? I got a fraud alert for the emergency card. Is Clara okay? Is Noah?" "Whoa, easy there, Richard," he said. His voice was slick and unbothered, laced with an easygoing arrogance that had always set my teeth on edge. "Everyone's fine. More than fine, actually. Fantastic." The relief solidified into a cold, heavy dread in the pit of my stomach. "Fine. Then what is this charge for over $70,000 at a car dealership, Leo?" There was a brief pause on his end, followed by the distinct sound of a car door closing with a satisfying, expensive-sounding thump. Then he laughed. It wasn't a nervous chuckle. It was a full, throaty laugh, brimming with self-satisfaction. "Oh, that," he said, his voice now closer, as if he'd just gotten into a new car and turned on the Bluetooth. "Don't worry about it. I handled it." "Handled what, Leo?" I demanded, my patience evaporating. "That card is for life-or-death emergencies. What could possibly have happened?" I could almost hear the smirk in his voice, the smug twist of his lips. "It was an emergency, Richard. A style emergency. The words hung in the air between us, so profoundly stupid, so breathtakingly insolent, that my mind momentarily went blank. A man who had dedicated his entire life to fiscal responsibility, who had lost his own wife to an illness where every dollar counted, was being told that a style emergency warranted the use of a lifeline I had created for my family. The casual disdain, the utter lack of respect for me, for my daughter, for the very concept of responsibility, was a slap in the face. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the trust he had casually incinerated. The betrayal was worse thaw. In the charge itself. I stood in my silent study, the phone pressed hard against my ear. The sunlight that had seemed so warm and comforting moments before now felt harsh and interrogative. In that moment, Leo's voice, filtered through the phone speaker, seemed to suck all the air out of the room. A style emergency. The phrase echoed in the chambers of my mind, each syllable a small, sharp hammer blow against my sense of decency. A style emergency, I repeated slowly, my voice dangerously quiet. I needed to hear him say it again. I needed to be sure I wasn't hallucinating. Yeah, exactly, he said, his tone bright and proud, completely oblivious to the storm gathering on my end of the line. My old sedan was just not cutting it anymore. You know my line of work, Richard. Image is everything. I'm selling luxury homes to luxury people. Showing up in a 10-year-old car is just bad for business. It screams desperation. He paused, and I heard the faint roar of an engine revving, a sound so obnoxious it was almost a caricature. This new ride, though. It's a game changer. Italian leather, midnight blue convertible. It says success. It says you can trust this guy with your biggest asset. He was trying to frame it as a business investment, a clever move. He was trying to manage me the same way he managed his clients. He saw me as an obstacle to be handled, not as the man whose trust he had just shattered. My training as a financial advisor kicked in, a lifetime of practice in maintaining composure while my insides churned with fury. Emotional responses solved nothing. They clouded judgment and led to poor decisions. I took a slow, deliberate breath. I see, I said, my voice as level as a frozen lake. So you used the emergency fund I established for my grandson's welfare to purchase a luxury vehicle for yourself. Hey, it's for the family's welfare too, he shot back, a hint of defensiveness finally creeping into his voice. More sales mean more money for Clara and Noah. It's an investment in our future. You, of all people, should understand investments. He had the audacity to lecture me on investments. He, who treated a lifeline like a lottery ticket. He, who equated a depreciating asset like a convertible with the long-term security of his family. For a brief, searing moment, I wanted to yell. I wanted to unleash the torrent of rage and disappointment that was building within me. I wanted to tell him what a small, foolish man he was. But I didn't. Instead, a cold, crystalline clarity settled over me. He wasn't just irresponsible, he was a user. He looked at me, at my life's work, at my love for my daughter, and saw nothing but a resource to be exploited. And in that moment, I knew that arguing with him would be as pointless as reasoning with a hurricane. He wouldn't understand. He was incapable of it. So I chose a different path. Well, Leo, I said, my voice softening into something that might have been mistaken for resignation. It's done now, I suppose. Just do me a favor. Sure, Richard, anything, he said, instantly relieved. He thought he had won. He thought the old man had folded. Drive safely, I said. Then I hung up. I stood there for a full minute, the phone still in my hand. The silence of the house was absolute. I walked over to my large oak desk and sat down heavily in my leather chair. I looked at the framed photo of my late wife, Eleanor, her smile gentle and knowing. She had never liked Leo. She'd been far more perceptive than me, seeing past his superficial charm to the hollowness beneath. Be careful, Richard, she had told me once long ago. Some people are like beautiful vases with cracks in the bottom. They can't hold anything of value. I had dismissed her concerns as overprotective mothering. I had wanted Clara to be happy, and Leo made her happy, at least on the surface. For that, I had been willing to tolerate him, to fund their down payment on their house, to provide the safety net of that credit card. I had done it all for Clara and for Noah. And Leo had taken that love and driven it off a cliff in a midnight blue convertible. I picked up the phone again, my movements now precise and devoid of any hesitation. I didn't call Leo back. I didn't call Clara. I called the number on the back of the credit card, the one for the 24-hour fraud department. As I waited for an agent to pick up, a single, cold thought solidified in my mind, a mantra of what was to come. He saw me as a wallet, I thought. He forgot I was the one who designed the wallet. Being a widower for the past decade had reshaped the landscape of my life. After a leaner past, the sprawling, vibrant world we had built together shrank to a single, focused point, our daughter, Clara. She was the repository of all my hopes, the living legacy of the love I had lost. I poured everything I had into ensuring she was safe, supported, and happy. When she was in college, I worked extra hours to ensue. She graduated without a penny of debt. When she wanted to start her own small graphic design business, I was her first and only investor, never asking for a return. My life's mission had simplified into one core objective: to be the rock she could always depend on. Then came Leo. He entered our lives like a flash flood, all charm, dazzling smiles, and expensive-looking clothes. Clara was instantly smitten. He was a real estate agent specializing in luxury lifestyles, a title that should have been my first red flag. He talked a big game, dropping names of wealthy clients and exclusive properties. He wore a watch that looked like it cost a fortune, but I, with my eye for detail, noticed the plating on the clasp was already starting to wear thin. It was a perfect metaphor for the man himself, a brilliant, flashy surface with cheap material underneath. He was dismissive of my profession in a subtle, condescending way. To him, a financial advisor was a dusty old bean counter, someone who clipped coupons and preached about saving for a rainy day. He was a man of action, a risk-taker who believed in manifesting wealth, not accumulating it through decades of discipline. He would pat my shoulder at family dinners and say things like, "Richard, you gotta spend money to make money. Loosen up a little." All while helping himself to the expensive wine I had bought. For Clara's sake, I held my tongue. I watched him charm her, win her over, and eventually ask for her hand in marriage. I paid for the wedding, a lavish affair that Leo insisted was essential for making the right connections. I bit back my objections when they bought a house that was slightly beyond their means, and I gave them the down payment as a gift, framing it as part of Clara's inheritance. I did it all with a smile, because Clara's happiness was paramount. The emergency credit card was my one non-negotiable boundary. When their son, my grandson Noah, was born, I sat them both down in my study. "This is not for shopping," I said, holding the pristine plastic card. "This is not for vacations or new gadgets. This is for a true, unforeseen crisis. If Noah gets sick in the middle of the night, if the furnace breaks in the dead of winter, if one of you loses a job and you can't make the mortgage payment. This is the panic button. You press it only when the house is on fire, literally or figuratively. Do you both understand?" Clara nodded earnestly, her eyes full of gratitude. "Of course, Dad, thank you. We'll never abuse it." Leo put on a solemn face, placing a hand on his heart. "Richard, you have my word. I would never betray that trust. This is for the family's security. I get it." I looked him dead in the eye, trying to impress the gravity of the promise upon him. He met my gaze without flinching. It was a masterful performance. I wanted to believe him. For my daughter, I chose to believe him. I had the card issued with me as the primary account holder and gave them a supplementary card, which I naively suggested Leo keep in their home safe, thinking his role as man of the house would instill a sense of responsibility. It was a catastrophic miscalculation. I had handed the keys to the vault to the one person I shouldn't have trusted. He hadn't just used the card, he had desecrated the very principle it represented. It wasn't just my money, it was the embodiment of my love and protection for my family, and he had treated it like a joke. The style emergency comment wasn't just arrogant, it was a direct mockery of everything I stood for. It was his way of saying, your old-fashioned values are meaningless. Your careful planning is just a bank account for me to draw from. I am the future. You are the past. As the fraud agent's voice came on the line, a calm, professional woman named Sandra, I felt the last vestiges of my tolerance for Leo crumble into dust. He had mistaken my love for weakness. He had mistaken my generosity for foolishness. It was a common mistake people like him made. They saw the quiet, steady river and forgot about the powerful, inexorable current running just beneath the surface. Global Trust Bank Fraud Prevention, this is Sandra speaking. How can I help you today? Her voice was calm, professional, and exactly what I needed to anchor myself. I took a breath and shifted into the mode I knew best, the methodical professional. The angry father-in-law receded, and Richard, the financial advisor, took his place. Hello, Sandra, I began, my tone even. My name is Richard Sterling. I'm calling about a fraud alert I just received on my account, number ending in 4826. Of course, Mr. Sterling. I can see the alert here. A charge from Prestige Motors for $72,451.88. Can you confirm if you authorized this transaction? No, I did not, I said clearly. I am the primary account holder. I am currently at my home office. I have not been to that dealership, nor have I authorized anyone else to make a purchase there. TA. Air was the sound of typing on her end. I see. The card used was a supplementary card under the name of Leo Vance. Is he an authorized user on your account? This was the crucial juncture. He is an authorized user, I confirmed, but with very specific, verbally agreed-upon limitations. The card was provided for emergency use only, specifically medical or household crises. The purchase of a luxury vehicle does not fall under that agreement. I understand, sir, Sandra said. So you're stating that while he had physical possession of the card, this specific transaction was not authorized by you. That is correct, I affirmed. From a legal and contractual standpoint, this is a fraudulent use of my credit line. He used my financial standing to secure an asset for himself without my knowledge or permission. I wish to dispute the charge and report the card as stolen, effective immediately. I used the word stolen deliberately. It carried a specific weight, a specific set of consequences that unauthorized did not. More typing. Okay, Mr. Sterling. I have canceled the supplementary card under Mr. Vance's name, and we will begin a formal fraud investigation immediately. We will be contacting the merchant, Prestige Motors, to inform them of the situation. Given the amount, this will be escalated to our senior investigation team. Thank you, Sandra. I appreciate your efficiency. One more thing, Mr. Sterling, she added. With high-value fraud cases like this, especially involving a tangible asset like a vehicle, we are obligated to file a report with local law enforcement. They will likely want to speak with all parties involved, including Mr. Vance, to take a statement. A thin, cold smile touched my lips. I would expect nothing less. Please proceed. After ending the call, I leaned back in my chair. The first gear had been engaged. Now, for my own due diligence. I didn't need to hire a private investigator. My entire career had been a form of investigation, peeling back layers of financial documents to find the truth. My first call was to a man named Jerry, a former client who now managed a large, more modest car dealership across town. We'd known each other for 20 years. Jerry, Richard Sterling here. I have a hypothetical question for you, I said. Richard, good to hear from you. Fire away, he replied warmly. Hypothetically, I said, if a young man came into your dealership wanting to buy a $70,000 car, and he put down, say, a $15,000 down payment on a credit card that wasn't his, what would your finance guys do? Jerry whistled. $15K down on a credit card. That's a red flag right there. Most places have a limit on credit card down payments, but let's say they let it slide. For the rest of the financing, they'd run his credit. If his credit is shaky, that big down payment on a high-limit card might make him look more creditworthy than he is. He's leveraging the cardholder's good name. The bank financing the loan sees the card and thinks, this guy has access to serious money. They might approve a loan they'd otherwise reject. It was exactly as I suspected. I decided to push it one step further. And what happens, hypothetically, if the credit card charge is reported as fraudulent and the $15,000 is clawed back by the bank? Jerry let out a low chuckle. Oh, that's a world of hurt for the buyer. The financing agreement is now based on false pretenses, that's bank fraud. The loan becomes void. The dealership is out its down payment and the bank is out its car. The first thing they do is repossess the vehicle. The second thing is press charges. You don't mess with car financing, Richard. It's serious business. Thank you, Jerry. You've been very helpful. My final piece of investigation was simple. I logged into the credit card portal and looked at the transaction details. The charge wasn't for the full $72,451.88. It was for $15,000 even. The larger number in the fraud alert was likely the total value of the car being financed, something the system flagged. Leo hadn't bought the car outright. He had used my emergency card to put a down payment on a car he couldn't afford, securing a loan for the remaining $57,000 based on a lie. He had committed fraud not just against me, but against the financing bank as well. He hadn't just been arrogant, he had been sloppy, and in the world of finance, sloppiness is a fatal flaw. The trap wasn't just set, it was now armed and waiting. All that was left was for Leo to drive his shiny new convertible straight into it. The next step was the most difficult, the one I dreaded most. It was time to call Clara. My heart ached for her. She was my daughter, and I knew this would shatter the fragile piece of her world. But she needed to hear it from me, not from a police officer or a repo man. Shielding her from the truth now would only cause her more pain later. She needed to be prepared. I rehearsed the opening line in my head, trying to find a tone that was gentle but firm, one that conveyed the gravity of the situation without sounding accusatory toward her. She was a victim in this as much as I was. I dialed her number. This time she answered on the first ring. Hi, Dad. Sorry I missed your call earlier. Noah was painting, which basically means he was painting himself, the floor, the dog. You know how it is. Her voice was light and cheerful, the sound of a happy mother wrapped up in her afternoon. It felt like a punch to the gut. It's all right, sweetheart, I said, my voice softer than I intended. Is Leo there with you? No, he went out for a bit, she said. He was so excited he had some big news for work or something. Why, what's up? Here it was. Clara, I need you to sit down. I have something very serious to tell you. The lightness in her voice vanished, replaced by immediate concern. Dad, what is it? What's wrong? You're scaring me. I received an alert from the bank today, I began, keeping my voice steady. There was a charge made on the emergency card, a very large one. What? No, that's impossible, she said, confused. The card is in the safe. Leo and I haven't touched it. I closed my eyes, the pain of the deception sharp and fresh. Clara, Leo used the card this afternoon to buy a car. Silence. For a long moment, the only sound was the faint static on the line. I could picture her perfectly, standing in her kitchen, her brow furrowed, trying to make sense of my words. A car, she finally said, her voice a whisper. No, no, Dad, that can't be right. There must be some mistake. He would never do that. He did, sweetheart. It was a $15,000 down payment on a new convertible. I spoke to him. He confirmed it. A convertible, her voice cracked. The absurdity of it was starting to sink in. Why would he do that? He told me, I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth, that it was a style emergency. I heard a sharp intake of breath on her end. Just then, another voice joined the call. What's going on? Who's on the phone? It was Leo. He must have just walked in the door. It's my dad, Clara said, her voice trembling. Leo, did you buy a car with the emergency card? Oh, for crying out loud, Leo sighed, his voice dripping with exasperation. I could hear him take the phone from her. Richard, are you serious? You're calling and upsetting my wife over this. I told you I handled it. It's an investment. Leo, it's not an investment, it's theft, I said calmly. You took money that was set aside for the protection of your wife and child and spent it on a toy for yourself. That is the definition of theft. Theft, don't be so dramatic, he scoffed, his voice rising. He was performing for Clara now, trying to paint me as the villain, the hysterical old man. It's a misunderstanding. I was going to pay you back. I'm about to close a huge deal. This is all just a temporary thing. You're blowing this way out of proportion. His lies were so transparent, so poorly constructed. He was flailing, trying to cover his tracks with bluster and deflection. There is no proportion here, Leo, I replied, my voice like ice. There is only fact. The fact is you committed fraud. You used my credit line under false pretenses to secure a loan. That is a crime, a serious one. It's not a crime, he sputtered. It's a family matter. You can't just call the cops on your own family. I didn't call the police, Leo, I said softly, letting the weight of the words sink in. I called the bank. I reported the fraud. Their protocols handle the rest. This is out of my hands now. A different kind of silence fell over the line. It was the silence of realization, the dawning horror of consequence. I could hear Clara start to cry softly in the background. Leo's bravado finally collapsed, replaced by a panicked edge. What does that mean?" he stammered. "What did you do?" "I did what any responsible account holder would do, Leo. I protected my assets," I said. "You should have thought of that before you went car shopping." I didn't wait for a reply. I ended the call. The confrontation was over. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't resorted to insults. I had simply laid out the facts, one by one, like stones in a foundation. And with them, the flimsy structure of Leo's lies had crumbled to the ground. The first crack in Clara's perception of her husband had just split wide open, and I knew with a heavy heart that it was only the beginning. The hour that followed the phone call was one of the longest of my life. I sat in my study, the silence amplifying the turmoil in my mind. I felt no triumph, only a deep, profound sadness for my daughter. I had just detonated a bomb in the middle of her life, and even though it was a necessary act, the fallout was going to be devastating. My phone buzzed with a series of incoming texts. They were from Leo. The first one read, "Richard, you can't be serious. Call the bank and tell them it was a mistake. We can fix this." The second, a minute later, "You're going to ruin my life over a car. And the third, reeking of desperation, "I'm sorry, okay? I'll sell the car. I'll get you the money back. Just please call them off." I read the messages and felt nothing but a cold emptiness. His apologies were not born of remorse but of fear. He wasn't sorry for what he did. He was sorry he got caught. He still didn't understand the fundamental nature of his transgression. He thought it was a simple transaction that could be reversed, a negotiation that could be won. He didn't grasp that trust, once shattered, cannot be simply glued back together. I deleted the messages without replying. The bank's fraud department, as I knew from professional experience, was a relentless and efficient machine. Once a high-value fraud claim is initiated, it moves along a predetermined track with cold, impersonal logic. My report had triggered a sequence of events that even I couldn't stop now. The merchant, Prestige Motors, would have already been notified that their $15,000 down payment was being reversed. The financing bank that had approved Leo's car loan would be notified next. His loan, secured with a fraudulent down payment, was now null and void. The car, legally, still belonged to the bank, and they would want it back. My phone rang again. This time it was Clara. Her name on the screen made my heart clench. I answered, bracing myself. Dad, her voice was choked with tears, thick with anguish and confusion. Leo is freaking out. He's saying you're sending him to jail. Clara, sweetheart, listen to me, I said gently. I'm not sending him anywhere. His own actions are what's causing this. I need you to understand the reality of the situation. I then did for her what I had done for clients my entire life. I calmly and dispassionately explained the mechanics of the financial world. I told her about the fraudulent down payment. I explained how that invalidated the loan agreement. I described the legal concept of procuring financing through deception, which was a serious offense. I presented the irrefutable proof, not of my anger, but of the law itself. The bank and the dealership will treat this as a theft, Clara, I concluded softly. They have to. It's not personal for them, it's business. They will file a police report to document the crime for their insurance and legal records. The police will have to investigate. She was sobbing now, a raw, painful sound that tore at my soul. But he said he was sorry, he said he'd fix it. Honey, some things can't be fixed with an apology, I said, my voice full of the sorrow I felt for her. You can't unscramble an egg. He made a decision, a deliberate, calculated decision to deceive. This isn't about a mistake, it's about his character. This is who he is. It was the hardest thing I'd ever had to say to her. I was forcing her to confront the terrible truth that the man she had married, the father of her child, was a fraud. Not just financially, but fundamentally. I don't know what to do, she whispered, her fairy tale world crumbling around her. For now, you don't have to do anything, I said. Just stay with Noah, keep him away from this. I want you to know that no matter what happens, you and Noah are safe. I will always be here for you. Her crying softened into quiet, shuddering breaths. The spell Leo had cast over her for years was finally breaking. The handsome prince she thought she had married was being revealed as a common thief, and the castle they lived in was built on a foundation of lies. The second, more powerful confrontation had occurred, not in a shouting match, but in the quiet, devastating clarity of the truth. Leo's last-ditch efforts to regain control had failed. The case was built, the evidence was submitted, and the verdict was already on its way. The call came just after 5 o'clock. It was Clara again, but her voice was different now. The tears were gone, replaced by a strange, hollowed-out tone of pure shock. Dad, she said, her voice barely audible. Leo's boss just called me from the office. My breath caught. What did he say, Clara? He said 2 police officers are there, in the office. They're talking to Leo, in the middle of the big glass conference room. I closed my eyes. The machine was working exactly as designed. I could picture the scene as if I were there. Leo's office was the pinnacle of his style emergency philosophy. It was a sleek, modern space in a downtown high-rise, all chrome and glass and minimalist furniture. His real estate brokerage prided itself on an image of supreme success and untouchable prestige. Leo's desk was positioned for maximum visibility, a throne from which he could survey his domain. The police officers would not have been loud or aggressive. Why would have been professional, calm, and utterly implacable? They would have entered quietly and asked the receptionist for Mr. Leo Vance. They would have been led to the glass-walled conference room, a fishbowl where every meeting was a performance for the rest of the staff. Leo was likely in the middle of a meeting, perhaps with a major client, regaling them with tales of his business acumen. The interruption would have been polite but firm. Mr. Vance, we need to have a word with you. The humiliation would have begun instantly. Every head in the open-plan office would have turned. Every conversation would have ceased. The sudden, chilling silence of an office confronted with real-world trouble. Leo, his face likely turning pale beneath his carefully maintained tan, would have tried to play it cool, to lead them to a private office. But they would have insisted on the conference room, standard procedure. We're investigating a complaint of fraudulent activity filed by Global Trust Bank. One of the officers would have said, his voice neutral but carrying to every corner of the silent room. It's in regards to a vehicle purchased this afternoon at Prestige Motors. The blood would have drained from Leo's face. His colleagues, his competitors, his clients, all of them were watching. The carefully constructed facade of the luxury lifestyle expert was being dismantled, piece by piece, under the harsh fluorescent lights of his own office. Clara continued, her voice trembling as she relayed what the boss had told her. His boss, Mr. Harrison, he said they questioned him for 20 minutes. Then one of the officers got a call, and he told Leo that the dealership was on its way to repossess the car. This was the masterstroke. I hadn't even anticipated the beautiful, terrible timing of it. He parked it in the Agent of the Month spot right by the main entrance, Clara whispered. Everyone can see it from the windows. And so the second act of the public shaming began. As the police concluded their statement, a tow truck from Prestige Motors, or more likely a flatbed used for high-end vehicles, would have pulled up to the front of the gleaming office building. A man in a jumpsuit would get out, consult a clipboard, and begin the methodical process of hooking the midnight blue convertible, the symbol of Leo's success, up to be hauled away like a piece of garbage. Leo would have been forced to watch, trapped in his glass cage as his colleagues and clients stared, first at the car, then back at him. The whispers would start, the smirks, the sudden, cold realization among his peers that the man who preached about image was nothing but a hollow fraud. His style emergency had become a five-alarm professional disaster. The triumphant roar of the engine I'd heard over the phone just a few hours ago was now replaced by the humiliating grind of a winch and the beep-beep-beep of a tow truck in reverse. The ultimate symbol of his arrogance was being publicly stripped from him. Clara's voice broke through my thoughts. Mr. Harrison fired him. He told me Leo needed to clear out his desk by the end of the day. He said their brand couldn't be associated with criminal activity. That was it, the climax. No shouting, no screaming. Just the quiet, efficient demolition of a man's life, executed by the very systems he thought he could manipulate. He wanted to project an image of success. Now his image was one of failure and disgrace, broadcast for all his world to see. He had made his final, triumphant action, not by confronting me, but by confronting the unavoidable consequences I had set in motion. The house of cards had fallen. In the days that followed, the full extent of the wreckage became clear. Leo's professional life was annihilated. News of the incident spread through the tight-knit real estate community like wildfire. He was not only fired but blacklisted. The man who sold luxury lifestyles became a cautionary tale whispered at cocktail parties. He was facing potential criminal charges for bank fraud, and though the bank might ultimately decide not to press for jail time, the threat alone was a permanent stain on his record. He was, in every sense of the word, ruined. The evening of the incident, Clara came home, not to the house she shared with Leo, but to my house, the house where she grew up. She arrived with Noah asleep in his car seat and 2 suitcases packed with their essentials. Her face was pale and her eyes were red-rimmed, but for the first time in a long time they were clear. The fog of Leo's charm had finally lifted, burned away by the harsh glare of reality. She fell into my arms in the doorway and I held her tight. There were no "I told you so's." There was no victory lap. There was only the quiet comfort of a father holding his daughter, shielding her from the storm. "I'm so sorry, Dad," she whispered into my shoulder. "I was so stupid. I didn't want to see it." "Yo, you weren't stupid," I said softly, stroking her hair. "You were in love, and you wanted to believe in the best version of him. There's no shame in that." We spent the next week in a state of quiet healing. I used my resources not for any further revenge but to help Clara. I called my personal lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Ms. Albright, and had her handle Clara's divorce proceedings. We made sure the filing emphasized Leo's fraudulent behavior to protect Clara's financial interests and ensure she got full custody of Noah. Leo, with no job and no credit, was in no position to fight it. One sunny afternoon, about a month later, I was in the backyard teaching Noah how to properly hold a small trowel to help me with the garden. He was happily digging in the dirt, smearing mud on his cheeks. Clara was sitting on the porch swing, a gentle smile on her face as she watched us. She looked more relaxed, more herself, than I had seen her in years. She came over and sat in the grass beside me. "You know," she said quietly, "for a long time I thought Leo's way was right. That being flashy and loud was how you got ahead in the world. I thought your way, being quiet, careful, steady, was old-fashioned." She reached out and wiped a smudge of dirt from my cheek. "I was wrong," she continued, her eyes shining with a newfound wisdom. "He built a house of cards on a foundation of sand. You built a fortress on solid rock. It took me way too long to see that." I looked at my grandson, so blissfully unaware of the drama that had secured his future, and then at my daughter, whose strength and resilience made my heart swell with pride. The anger I had felt toward Leo was gone, replaced by a deep, abiding peace. The $72,000 charge had been reversed. The car was a bad memory. Leo was a ghost from a previous life. What I had left was what truly mattered: my family, safe, secure, together. The revenge wasn't in the public humiliation of a foolish man. The victory wasn't in the repossession of a car. The true vindication was right here, in the quiet sunshine of my backyard, knowing I had done what I had always set out to do. I had protected my family, and that was an investment with a return that no amount of money could ever match.